Today is August the 16th. This is Frank DiMora from the End Times Research Ministry. And if you'd like to get my book, my documentary on Bible prophecy and current events today for free, which you see below, just go to this link. If you're on YouTube channel, just go to my link right here and you'll be able to scroll down and you'll see the book. The link is right here. I updated it with the newest information today, August 16th. Now I want to get in a little bit of information before I hit the news. Won't take long, but this is a blessing. I have a new partner in Kenya, and I want to introduce Peter to you. You see him right here. And Peter has just joined the Last Chronicles of Planet Earth mission. He's going to be a blessing. In the process of sending my books, and we're going to try to get him the materials that he needs to be able to lead others in Kenya to Christ. We have other people in Nairobi, Francis, which you've seen many times on my YouTubes that's there, and also we have Titus, Pastor Titus, who is in Eldoret, Kenya, who's spreading out in many parts of his area there, spreading the good news. We're handing out Bibles and, of course, my books and leading people to Christ. So we want to pray for Peter. We thank the Lord that he's brought him to us. He's been involved in ministry for a long time, and it is my blessing to have him partner up with me to share my work to lead other people to the Lord. So, Peter, God bless, and we know that the Lord will help you to reach the people that you need to reach. Now, getting into the news, of course, last week I was telling you about getting ready to watch for some big earthquakes. They did come, and today was another one. And I just want to play the video. You can see the New Zealand flag flying here because that's where this latest earthquake hit. It was massive. It's a 6.9, and that's pretty big. Watch.
But to our breaking news of the last half hour, and a strong magnitude 6.2 earthquake has struck the northern tip of New Zealand's South Island and was felt in the capital, Wellington. Sky News New Zealand reporter Charlotte Bellis is following the story for us, and she joins me now. Charlotte, what can you tell us?
Well, good afternoon. As you said, a large aftershock hit just after 2:30 this afternoon New Zealand time. Hit 10 kilometres southeast of Seddon. A small town called Ward was where the epicentre was, near the Cook Strait, and of course very near to Wellington, our capital. It was a magnitude 6.2. Originally, it was deemed to be a 6.9 by Gerrinet, but that was pulled down to a 6.2, but obviously a very severe shake. It was just 8 kilometres deep. And that was followed 6 minutes later by a 5.7 centred in the same area. So again, another very strong shake. And they are just continuing to shake the region. The most recent one at 2:56, and that was a magnitude 5.2. So these are very strong shakes, and they're continuing to shake the region every few minutes. Wellington, as I said, is the closest big city, and this region has had a pattern of aftershocks really that have been centred around where this aftershock has been centred since a large quake hit. It was on the 21st of July. That on the 21st of July, it was a Sunday, so there weren't that many people in the Wellington CBD, and of course this happened at 2:30 on a Friday here, so a lot of people in high-rises in town. We've just had a release from the New Zealand Fire Service. They've said they've had no calls involving serious damage to buildings or property in the Wellington CBD. Few appliances have responded to automatic alarms that have been triggered by the shaking in the central city area. They've also got reports of people trapped in lifts, and they're working on that. There have been reports of power lines down in the Seddon areas. That's the top of the South Island in the Marlborough region, and they say they're going to put an update out in about another half an hour. And last time, when this first big shake hit on the 21st of July, triggered a lot of discussion about the safety of Wellington's buildings there, although in that aftershock they did hold up fairly well. Just some masonry fell off buildings. No one was really seriously injured, and only a handful were deemed structurally unsafe after that shake. And it seems, at least from what we've received just from the fire service now, that they don't have any reports of serious damage, which is very good news. We are just getting information in very slowly, but we do understand all train services have been cancelled in the Wellington region. Also, the Wellington airport has closed their runway for inspection. Civil Defence has said no tsunami threat, good news, and we do have reports that this earthquake was felt across the country, as far north in fact as Hamilton.
Charlotte Bellis, thanks very much for that update.
All right, so there you have it, another big earthquake, and you're going to see a lot more of them before it's all over, I guarantee it, because this is what the word of the Lord tells us in the scriptures in Matthew chapter 24, verse 7, and also in Luke 21:11. You'll see the mention of many earthquakes and strong quakes. Now, one of the prophecies that I've been given to you almost every single day is the one that we were told in Hosanna, and you'll see it in chapter 4, verses 1 through 3, where we're told that the fish, birds, and animals were going to be dying off in the last days. And it's becoming a regular pattern almost every day now that we're seeing this kind of news. Now, just a few days ago, I didn't have this news in here. But we have 1, 2, 3, 4 more reports. You'll see, I'm going to have the link there. I'll let you go to the link by yourself so that you can read the article. And a lot of this material has been translated because some of the outbreaks, as you see here, are in a different country, so it has to be translated. But we have 1,000 fish found floating in a national mall. And there, I'm going to go to that one in a second, but let me just show you 1,000 fish dead floating again here in China. Hundreds of fish found dead in a dam, and massive fish die off on ponds in China. Now let me go over to this one first, and then I'll connect the dots a little bit for you there. It says 1,000 dead fish, and it comes with a video, so I'm just going to play the video.
Well, it looks bad, and it smells even worse. More than 1,000 bluegill fish have been found dead, floating belly up on the Constitutional Garden Pond at the National Mall in Washington. Now, experts believe an algae bloom is to blame for this. The bloom essentially sucks the oxygen out of waters, but the investigation continues.
Now, in my book, you're going to read a lot about these algae blooms, because the algae blooms, there's brown and then there's red. But we do know in the book of Revelation, the Lord warns about the oceans turning blood. And when you see these massive blooms and spreads out on the water and it turns the color of red like blood, you begin to wonder. But as I have been reporting, most of the cases are talking about the oxygen being depleted from the water. And this is another one of those cases that because of the temperatures, it's causing obviously the water to change, causing blooms, and you'll see 1,000 fish that have died off. All right, so now I'm at another website here. You see translate hundreds of dead fish around the Fuentes. And let me go down to the picture here so you can see this has become a quite common sight with all the fish dying many places around the world. But as I said, I do have all the links there for you to check out, so at your own convenience you might want to look at them. But here's the bottom line. Almost on a daily basis, we're seeing either fish, animals, or birds reports dying off. And it's escalating. It's getting a lot worse than when I first started to track this kind of information. And it all happens again while all the prophecies are being fulfilled at the same time. No other generation has ever seen what we're seeing now. Now let me go into the food crisis, because obviously if you have just an isolated case for fish, when you have massive fish kills, you're going to have, obviously, the price of the fish is going to go up. So let's expand it here, because what we see from Revelation, we know that the food crisis is coming. And we see one of the horsemen of the apocalypse holding the balances there, and that is going to be obviously death. And when you read the scriptures, you'll see it. Now, Revelation chapter 6, verse 6. This is what Jesus said, and I heard a voice in the middle of the four beasts say, a measure of wheat for a penny, and 3 measures of barley for a penny. So, very briefly, just let me tell you that this is where we know, in relation to the story that Jesus gave to us about the men working all day long for a denarii. And so we know that what Christ is showing us is that during the tribulation period, and we're well advancing towards that people will be leaving, or the people who do not leave for the rapture, they're going to be here on earth. They're going to have to work all day long for 1 quart of wheat. Believe me, that's not much at all for one person, and that's only for one meal. And I keep repeating myself over and over again because we keep seeing the information coming showing us that the food crisis is getting worse. Now, one of the things that I posted, I believe it was either yesterday or the day before, I know it was either on the 14th or the 15th, and I talked about the bees population dying off, and it was part of my video that I put up 2 days ago. And today that there is another bit of news that I wanted to share with you, because if the bees can't pollinate, if they're not around to pollinate, that means that you're not going to have the crops. And if you don't have the crops, guess what? You're going to have a food crisis. And this is, again, essentially what we see in the book of Revelation. So let me go over to the article, 1.3 million bees found dead on organic. And I'm just going to play the video for you.
This is a honeybee that is about to die, just like the others in this bee yard north of Hanover today. Beekeeper Dave Shewitt estimates that 1.3 million bees have died here in the past 24 hours. Shewitt says he has seen this before, and it looks like the bees have been poisoned.
I believe it's in the soil, the neonicotinoids. I believe it's in the water. I believe it's in the pollen.
Neonicotinoids are extremely toxic to bees, even in tiny amounts. They are now widely used to protect corn, soy, and wheat seed. The pesticide is water-soluble and persists in the environment for several years. Neonics were recently banned in Europe, while more research is being done. According to the Ontario Beekeepers Association, the number of acute poisonings like this is mounting this summer, and the total number is expected to surpass last year when 240 incidents were reported. Laboratory testing confirmed that neonicotinoid pesticides were present in 80% of those cases. Today, inspectors from the Ministry of Agriculture collected samples for testing to see if the pesticide or something else is killing these bees. Results are not expected for several months. Health Canada is currently re-evaluating at least 7 crop protection products that contain the chemical. In July, the province created a new working group made up of beekeepers, farmers, and scientists to look into the crisis. Gerald Peckman is a farmer who is seeing this with his own eyes for the first time.
When I see dead canaries in the mine, I know that there's a problem. So when I see dead bees out in the field, I know there's a bigger problem. And I don't know where to point the finger. I hardly know where to start, but we need to start someplace because our whole biodiversity is seriously at risk, if not even our food supply.
The province's new working group that is looking into bee mortalities in Ontario is scheduled to have their next meeting early next week. Roger Klein, CTV News, Hanover.
All right, so in that video that I just showed, he even mentioned about birds being found in the mines there. And you could just add that to the birds, the warning about the birds dying from the scriptures that I just gave to you. But we're seeing news like this more frequent than I've ever seen it. And it's definitely an indication of what's going to take place in the near future as we see this crisis develop. So now let me go over to another, if you will. I wanted to, when you're talking about food prices skyrocketing, just let me, if you go to the Google search and you put Frank DiMora and you put in some phrases like food prices will rise, skyrocketing food prices, or food prices will continue to rise, Frank DiMora, you're going to get countless number of articles and videos that I made warning you that the price of food was going to keep going up, which it has. And I know that it has to happen because this is the warning from the Lord. Now, there was a video that came out, And you'll see the headline here: Obama declares executive order that will make food costs skyrocket. Now, somebody sent me this, and I'm just going to play it for you, a portion of it. But it's very interesting, and it just goes to show you what the president is doing. His agenda with Israel is wrong. His now with the food supply, it just makes you wonder, and he's trying to control America. And the Americans are starting to see this, and are getting very, very uneasy about this president who's becoming more like a tyrant than a president. So let me play this, and I'll let you get out of it what you will.
Obama declares executive order that will make food costs skyrocket. Obama issued an executive order on the 1st of August that will effectively ban ammonium nitrate in the USA. It will become too expensive to create too much possible civil and criminal liability to manufacture, store, or transport it. Clinton did the same thing to anhydrous ammonium dealers in 1999. It put most anhydrous dealers out of business. Obama is imposing the same regs and adding explosive regulations on top of OSHA and EPA regulations. It's all there if you want to know how to read the little bureaucracies. Food and fuel prices will skyrocket because ammonium nitrate forms the basis for almost all nitrogen and granular fertilizers used in American farming. There are no cost and ease of manufacturer use equivalents for ammonium nitrate. Supply and demand economics are going to be harsh lessons this day. Crop yields will go down. Corn is the basis for the American food supply, and the fuel additive ethanol, AN, is critical in corn production. Hope everyone is ready for $12 per gallon gasoline and a $20 box of cornflakes. You know why North Koreans are starving? Because they don't have ammonium nitrate to fertilize their crops. So they have basically low yields. And for those of you who want to read the executive order at the whitehouse.gov, that link will be in the description box below, as you will.
All right, so I left it off there. Very interesting. And here's the link that I put up there for you so that you don't have to go searching for it. You could read it. This is the executive order. And so when you mess around with these nitrates, you're messing around with Americans' food supply. This is very, very dangerous. And people who are able to control the food supply can control the people. And it certainly looks like this is what Clinton tried this before, but this is certainly what Obama seems to be trying to do himself. So let's move on now to another prophecy, and you'll see it here, Luke 21:25, where the Lord revealed to us the signs of the sun, excuse me, and in the moon, and in the stars, and upon the earth. Now get this: distress of nations with perplexity, the sea and the waves roaring. So that tells us big storms that are coming. The storms push the winds. You'll see this. And the waves crashing on the shorelines, wherever the storms are, typhoons, hurricanes, massive storms. The United States has been inundated with storms that have been lingering over Texas and Kansas and Oklahoma, Missouri, New Jersey, pouring down inches at a time. But this now I'm going to center towards Pastor Fiaz in Pakistan, because Pastor Fiaz, as you can see here, he has my book. He is one of the people that have partnered up with me in the Last Days ministry, the Last Chronicles of Planet Earth missions. And he just sent me pictures from Pakistan of a massive flood that has been taking place there in Pakistan. You'll see it says this from Pastor Fiaz. Please pray for Pakistan, dear brothers and sisters in Christ. Please pray for Pakistan. There is great flood in Pakistan, many areas, and people have affected and lost their everything they need our prayers. Well, I'm just going to put up the pictures for you and move down. Just wait. At least you'll be able to see hands-on pictures from one of my partners that are right there watching it happen. It's a lot of water. And that's the end of the pictures that Pastor Fiaz sent to me. But here's the bottom line. We're seeing the storms, not only in America, but we've been watching in 2013. And I have chronologically put all these storms in my book for you, the big ones, to show you what's been happening. But it's definitely happened when all the other prophecies are taking place. Alright, so now I want to get back into Isaiah chapter 19, verses 1 through 4. You'll see the Egyptian flag. Yesterday and the day before, I gave you some news about the kingdom fighting against itself. We know that in the scripture. Look at verse 2, and I will set the Egyptians against the Egyptians. And that's exactly what's taken place. I told you that we are going to see some violence, again, uprising, because the Muslim Brotherhood, they don't quit. And they want to stay in the mix until either they get killed or they reinstall their Muslim Brotherhood Marsi, who they deposed, just like Mubarak was deposed. Now, also, I wanted to mention verse 4 here, because in verse 4, it says this, and the Egyptians will I give over to the hand of a cruel lord, right? And a fierce king shall rule over them. So, right now we have two people that we're looking at. One of them is Mansour. Mansour is the president of Egypt right now, the interim president of Egypt right now. And yesterday or the day before, I shared with you that the vice president of Egypt resigned. So Mansour is the main focus in the government right now, the head. So he could be this cruel lord. Now, I think it was 2 weeks ago that I shared with you that I had this dream, and this name kept being repeated, Mansour, Mansour, Mansour. In this dream, this lady was scared, and I knew that she was afraid of this person. I didn't know who this person was, but the person's name was Mansour. And I had shared with you about that in a video. I also I wrote it out in a couple of posts that you'll be able to Google and see. They're still there in the YouTube videos that I put up. And I said that I wanted to wait and see if this person, Mansour, was in fact the person that the Lord was trying to show me was going to take over Egypt. I want to be very, very cautious about what I say to people. And so I said, let's watch and see what happens. So I've been watching Mansour. Now, I think you're going to find this interesting, as interesting as you're going to find what's in this analysis. And the reason why I brought to you this lord, this cruel lord, and the fierce king. All right, so there's two people involved here. Now, Israel today came out with an analysis that I found very, very interesting. And look at the headline. Its official military chief, Sisi, is the new king of Egypt. And the reason why I thought it was really interesting is because this is essentially what Isaiah chapter 19 talks about, this fierce king that will be coming. So let me share with you a little bit about this article, and then I can connect the dots with you and for you. After Wednesday's military assault on protesters, it seems ever more apparent that elections will likely not be fair, and the Egyptian's government will probably rule at the pleasure of Sisi. Now, this is Sisi right here, the military ruler who deposed Morsi, the Muslim Brotherhood candidate. Anyone who was expecting liberal democracy to sprout in Egypt following a series of revolution, protests, and elections and crackdowns since President Hosni Mubarak was overthrown in 2011 will be sorely disappointed by Wednesday's military assault on the protesters and the imposition of emergency law. Very interesting, because the person who imposed this military law was not the general, Sisi, it was Mansour, the president. So they're working hand in hand. It says, even though the government said it would continue to follow the transition process and hold elections, it seems ever more apparent that the elections will likely not be fair, and that Egyptian governments, at least in the near future, will probably rule at the pleasure of Sisi. This would be similar to Arab monarchies, where a king has overall authority but delegates governance to a prime minister and his cabinet. So in this case, what they're alluding to, it would be Mansour. He would delegate it to, because he's the president. So if things get out of hand, or the government does something the king does not like, it is simply forced to carry out the king's will or is dismissed. Now, this is a couple days ago I talked about President Mohammed, the vice president. His first name is Mohammed. He resigned, leaving, as I said before in this video, leaving the main power to Mansour, right? So in reaction to the crackdown came because preferred a negotiated solution. So this is why they're telling you why he resigned. Now, perhaps others in the government agreed with him, but when the chips were down, the real power was the military. In addition, the new military-backed government has been facing a radical Islamic opposition and saw no way out of the crisis without restoring order. Now, the question now is if Sisi will take outright control by running in the next presidential elections, or will continue overseeing things from behind the scenes. So if Mansour is the president, and he is the cruel lord, and they do have elections, and he runs and takes over, he could become that fierce king. That's what we're looking for. Or will they both stay in the power? I don't know, but we're definitely watching this. Letting a president and the government of technocrats run affairs. So again, Sisi would be the main guy with the military, but Mansour would be running the affairs. Now, the condemnations coming from the U.S. and Europe fit with the country's ongoing pressure on Egypt to include the Muslim Brotherhood in the country's politics. So this is where Israel does not want the Muslim politics to thrive in Egypt, because they're bent on the destruction of Israel. And of course, this goes hand in hand with Psalm 83. I've mentioned it 1,000 times. That war has not been fulfilled yet, but Egypt's in the attack against Israel. So you can see why Israel doesn't want the Muslim Brotherhood to be installed again. So the bottom line is this. We're seeing riots, we're seeing death and destruction, and we're seeing, I believe, the setup of the cruel Lord and the fierce king of Isaiah chapter 19. Now, exactly who they are going to be for sure, you're going to have to do what I'm doing. Wait and watch the news. Because I don't know. I really don't know. All I know is part of the scripture is already been fulfilled. They're already fighting against themselves, as you can see in verse 2 here. So the next part would be who the leader is. So watch with me as these weeks go by, and I'm sure that it's going to end up just like Syria in a massive civil war which is still going on. Now, what I'd like to do is move to Syria and connect Syria with the President Barack Obama, because this is important. Because Obama is supporting, and I've said this before in some of my videos, he is supporting the people who want to destroy Israel. He's supporting the rebels who are trying to take out Bashar al-Assad from Syria. And when you come against Israel, and where you support the people who are trying to take down a government that obviously Syria is going to be involved in the attack against Israel, as we see in Psalm 83, like Egypt, but you have the President of the United States backing the people who want to destroy Israel. And this is why I'm saying you really need to watch what Barack Obama is doing, because I don't believe that this man loves America, because he's doing things that are showing the destruction of America, leading towards the destruction of America, leading, if you will, battles, supporting the wrong people, if you will, the food supply, what he was going to do to the food supply, making the cost go through the roof, making it very, very hard for people to live. Now, there's a video that came up, that the video, as you can see here, Obama-backed militants execute teenage boys. These are the people who Barack Obama is supporting. These are the same people, Al-Qaeda, who the United States right now has been fighting in Afghanistan. But Barack Obama is supporting these people. These are kids. Now, I'm not going to show you the video. I'm not going to show you the video, but let me just say this. These people in the video shot these kids about 20 to 25 times. Killed them. Obviously killed them after being shot. Close range, 25, at least 25 times. And this is the kind of people that the president of the free world is supporting. Danger. Dangerous. And oh man, is it dangerous policy to come against anyone who's going to be coming against Israel. And the policy of Barack Obama is coming against the nation of Israel. Many of the people cannot see this, but everything that he has been doing since he was in president-elect to the nation of Israel is to destroy and separate the Jews from their homeland. We see that even in the peace process. Now, one of the things, when I said dangerous, there's an article that says this: is everybody blind? The city council meeting erupts in applause after retired Marine issues dire warning about U.S. building a domestic army update. And I'm going to play this video. This is where Senator Barack Obama was talking about forming a military, not a military like an armed forces, but a civilian military. Watch this.
We cannot continue to rely only on our military in order to achieve the national security objectives that we've set.
Oh, by the way, Adolf Hitler did the same thing.
We've got to have a civilian national security force that's just as powerful, just as strong, just as well funded.
So I wanted to put that up so you can see that he did say that. And I want to move over to this article. Well, the blaze, actually what I'm going to do is scroll down here, because what they're talking about in this meeting, you're going to see that this is a retired, I think he was a retired colonel, speaking about this. He was the one that was speaking in this article about stopping this domestic army. All right. Now, in here, he's talking about this council, the city council. They were talking about getting armor for the police department that's like military. And when I saw this picture, I thought, oh, geez, here we go again. Because about 6 months ago in Lompoc, California, I saw this similar vehicle. And I was driving, and my wife, it was sitting out in front of the police department, and I said, take a look at that armored vehicle. And it said police department on it. And she said, why do they need that? And I said, man, you don't want to know. And but it was sitting there. And it is, I don't know what they did with it, where they put it, but it's not in the open now. But it looks almost just like this. Fortified Army material, if you will. This one is LAPD. But listen to what he says in this meeting.
Next up, we have, well, I actually been skipping this card because there's no name on it. But they're here representing humanity, so I can't. So if you're the one up to it, I represent humanity. And you want 90 seconds, so I'm going to give it to you. That counts as part of your 90 seconds.
That's all right, I read over here. I heard this was going on, so I just needed to step back.
Thank you very much. What's your name, sir? Where are you from?
Humanities. Pete Martino from Epsom. You don't need this. You really don't. I was a colonel, I'm a retired colonel in the Marine Corps. I saw a sign back there that said, we want more Mayberry and less Fallujah. And I spent a year in Fallujah. And you know what? When I first got there, I didn't have armored Humvees, and I traveled over 10,000 miles over there. And sometimes you got to deal with and go with what you have. And so that's part of the job, for one. The second thing is, though, when I was in Iraq, I was in charge, I was the Ministry of Defense coordinator. My job was to man, train, and equip the Iraqi army in Al-Anbar, Najaf, Karbala, and northern Baghuz provinces. And I can tell you right now, well, somebody had a great idea to get rid of the Iraqi army, so when we rebuilt it, we did everything we could to make it as strong as possible. And I'll tell you right now, Homeland Security would kick their butts in a week. What's happening here is we're building a domestic military because it's unlawful or unconstitutional to use American troops on American soil. So what we're doing is we're building a military. My best friend, who's a SWAT officer in Nashua, who came to Iraq with me to train the Iraqi police, sent me an email with a picture of him in the media on the streets of Watertown, Mass, wearing the exact same combat gear that we had in Iraq, only it was a different color. And the way we do things in the military is called task organization. You take a command, and then you attach units to it in order to accomplish the mission. What's happening is Homeland Security is pre-staging gear, equipment, consistent. What they're trying to do is use standardized vehicles, standardized equipment. I saw a picture in the Boston Globe during the marathon bombing where there was a state police officer, actually there were two officers, they both had identical helmets, flak jackets, weapons, everything I wore in Iraq, only it was all blue. The officer on one side had a big patch on his back that said Massachusetts State Police. Another officer next to him, his patch said Boston Police. And so what we're doing here, and let's not kid about it, we're building a domestic army and we're shrinking the military because the government is afraid of its own citizens. The last time more than 10 terrorists were in the same place at one time was September 11th, and all these vehicles in the world wouldn't have prevented it, nor would it have helped anybody. So I don't know where we're going to use this many vehicles and this many troops. Concord is just one little cog in the wheel. We're building an army over here, and I can't believe that people aren't seeing it. Is everybody blind? That's all. I'll take
that.
Now, he's going to say something. I hope that you can hear it. If after he says it, I'll repeat it because there's a lot of wisdom in what he says.
An issue, but if you please, for my first time, I'm asking you not to boo or clap one way or the other.
I'll take any questions.
Any questions?
My wife always told my kids there's always free cheese in the mousetrap.
There's always free cheese in the mousetrap. In other words, Barack Obama is setting America up. That's what he is saying. Very clear. Let me play it again.
Questions?
My wife always told my kids there's always free cheese in the mousetrap.
Remember that. Because what Obama is doing is setting up. Now, if there's another terrorist attack in the United States, if there's problems with the food, if there is anything that would cause the president, now that the president has the ability to call martial law if he wants, say the dollar crashed, then they would definitely call out this militia that they're putting together, this new army of civilians, if you will, to be able to fight against their own people. And that's what it certainly looks like. Now let me move on to another prophecy, and this one has to do with what the Lord showed us through Matthew chapter 24 and also in Luke chapter 17. And it has to do with what happened in during Sodom and Gomorrah and Lot's generation. And we know that the Noah's generation, that it ended up with everybody dying except for those that were in the ark. And this is supposed to be the ark that they found on Mount Ararat in Turkey. But we know that the two angels went in to get out Lot from the city before it destroyed it. And the men, homosexuals, obviously when you read the scriptures, tried to have sex with the two angels. And what had happened, to make a long story short, is God incinerated Sodom and Gomorrah. He destroyed it. And we know that it was destroyed during Noah's generation the same way with the flood. Ungodly people turned from God. And this generation is just like that generation of Sodom and Gomorrah and obviously Noah's generation. And we see more signs of it all the time growing. Now, yesterday, if you will, go to my site and you'll see a video that I put up of a gentleman talking about, he was really upset from a news channel about Barack Obama causing fear in America. And this goes along the same line. Take a look at this. California considers publishing youth groups against homosexuality as bathroom bill becomes law. Let me go to the article. All right, so it says, on the same day that the governor of California signed a bill into law mandating that boys who identify as girls be allowed to use the girls' bathroom and vice versa, a California committee approved legislation which would cause any nonprofit organizations that do not embrace homosexuals to lose tax exemption. If this is not a hand of authority coming down on the gauntlets against, if you don't believe what we believe, if you don't do what we tell you to believe, this is what we're going to do to you. That's what they're doing. That's what they're doing. Your kids may be violated because of this law. There's a good possibility of that. Boys going into girls' rooms, girls going into boys' room. You talk about problems now with pedophiles and stuff like this and the different things that we're hearing about in the news. I mean, this is disgusting. Unrighteous people passing laws. Now, the Senate Bill 223 was first introduced mid-February by Ricardo Lara, a Democratic state senator from Los Angeles. And Lara is himself an open homosexual. So again, we have the agenda that I talked about, I believe it was last year. I said, watch the agenda because they're going to be moving faster than that they ever have before. I saw this coming as each state, one after another, was starting to legalize or to pass same-sex marriage. And it's gotten worse and worse. All right? So it doesn't surprise me at all that the people trying to pass this, himself a homosexual, as well as a member of the California Legislature LGBT caucus. And according to the bill's introduction, SB 323 would provide that an organization that is public charity youth organization that discriminates on the basis of gender identity, race, sexual orientation, nationality, religion, religious affiliation is not exempt from state taxes. later in the legislation approximately, and they name who they are. I mean, it's not a, look at, they're coming down with this baseball bat. Here you go. If you don't do what we are, we're going to name you. Everybody's going to know who you are. And they name them. And here it is. Look at this. Little League, Boy Scouts, Cub Scouts, Girl Scouts, Young Men's Christian Association, Young Women's Christian Association, the Future Farmers of America, Future Homemakers of America, 4-H clubs, boys clubs, and the girls clubs are all included. The youth of America. They're going after the youth of America. Satan's going after the youth of America. He figured he can't get to the adults. Let's work through the youth of America. We'll force it on them. That's what this government is doing. Now, before I go on any farther, let me just say this. Should you hate anyone? Absolutely not. That's what Christ, when he tells us, love your neighbor. And he says, pray for your enemies. Jesus is all about love, loving one another. And it shouldn't matter who you are or what you look like or what color you are or anything else. But what the group, the homosexual group, is trying to paint a picture of is that the Christians hate them. And I would say that if there's anybody who claims that they're a Christian and they hate anybody, including the homosexual people, then they really are not following the Lord, and they may not at all be a true Christian. We're supposed to love everybody. Now, we're supposed to hate the sin, which is completely different than hating the person. Make a separation there, because you should be praying for people like this Democratic state senator from Los Angeles. Not hate him, hate what he's doing, but love the person. Because this person, whether you like what I'm saying or not, Jesus went to the cross and was nailed to the cross for this person. That's a fact. Now it's up to this person whether he wanted to receive that or not. That's up to him. But it is not up to us to judge this person. It's up to us to give him the word of God, of what the scriptures have to say about what's going to happen in the near future to anybody who violates God's principles and rejects Christ as the Messiah. That's a whole different matter. But never hate anybody. We can hate the laws, hate the legislation, but we should be doing the exact opposite. We should be loving these people and praying for them that they will receive the enlightenment from the Lord to understand that there's a consequence for everything that they're doing, and someday everyone, including this person, will be facing Jesus Christ on the judgment seat. So we have bad bills. We got the lavatories open up, and so when you get home, if you have kids, and one of your kids says, there was this guy that came into my bathroom today, Mom, and it's your daughter, and he stared at me, don't be surprised, because that's what this bill is going to end up doing. We're going to have all kinds of perverts, and they're just going to take it as an opportunity to be able to do things that this law would not allow them to do. All right, so let me go back now to my website, and let's visit this prophecy in Matthew 24:9. And you're going to also see it again in the Revelation in chapter 6, verse 9, talking about the persecution of Christians in the last days. The homosexual movement here they're definitely trying to attack Christians, Christian philosophy, Christian beliefs, and there's definitely the warfare between Christ and Satan going on here. And this is why we need to be praying for all of these people. And so we know that we should be expecting these kind of things because we are in the last days, and the characteristics of the last days generation is here again. No other generation has ever done this again except for our generation. So you shouldn't be surprised by this. But when we take a look at, I wanted to bring some of the persecutions in the news so that you'll see that what the Lord warned about, we're starting to see more and more of this kind of news. So let me go over to the first one. Evangelicist sentenced to 3 years in prison. There's two Christian brothers. They were sentenced to 3 years in prison on August the 2nd, 2013, after being convicted of evangelizing Muslims. I mean, how this is going on more and more throughout the Muslim world. It says the Voice of the Martyrs reported on March 20th, 2013, their home was attacked by an angry mob of about 200 Muslims. And if you keep reading stories like this, and the Muslims keep wanting to present that they're peaceful, they love people, but yet you hear countless reports that this is what they're doing. And it just is the opposite. This is why we really need to be praying for the Muslim brothers and the sisters. Police stopped the attack on their home and then arrested the two brothers. And the brothers were convicted despite their lawyers' insistence in court that their trial violated their human rights. When you're in Muslim territory and you're preaching Jesus Christ, or you stand for Jesus Christ, simply put, you have no rights. You have no rights. They're going to make it so that you have no rights. Just like we saw those two young kids killed, this is what the Muslims that are trying to do, is to eradicate anybody who does not believe in Allah and doesn't follow Sharia law. All right, this last section here, the quantum teleportation. Our generation, as I said already in this video, we're doing things that nobody else has ever done. And we're showing the characteristics of no other generation has before, except for Sodom and Gomorrah in Noah's generation. And the Lord said, when you shall see all these things, know that is near, even at the door. And our generation is seeing everything all at once. And we're the only generation who has seen all these things. And one of those prophecies has to do with increased knowledge, as you see in Daniel 12:4. This is where he tells us. Now, there's an article about the quantum teleportation, which obviously is very complex. I put the link up there for you so that you can read the link. And it is involved, but it's more like science fiction coming to reality. But it could never happen unless the generation who had this increased knowledge, who had been able, for example, to put the computer together, to be able to use the computer and then run wild with the computers in the generation to do things unheard of in one single generation, as we're seeing here now. And this is from the Science Daily. Very interesting. It came out yesterday. It's a current article, but it definitely shows just a characteristics of the last days generation. So that's the news for today. And again, before I close, just let me say this. I updated the book for you today. You can get it at my website by going to my link. Click this link right here, and the book will come up in a matter of seconds, depending on the speed of your computer. And in closing, let me say this. Some of these videos are really tough for me to produce because I don't want to sound pessimistic, because we need to have hope. And Christ continues to give us our hope. And some of the news that I give to you may be scaring people. You know, some of this news, when I look at it, even scares me. I'll be honest with you. We're only human. But the Lord gives us strength. We know that these days are coming. We need to prepare for it. And when you look, for example, at the United States and you see what's going on in the United States, you see the unemployment lines, you see the economy just failing at a standstill pace. The GDP product is not going anywhere. We're not hiring like we should be hiring, like a prosperous nation. We see that Christ is being taken out of the country. We see welfare lines. We see food stamp lines. And we see things that we don't want to see. But all of these things are related, as you can see, and you would see if you read my book, The Last Chronicles of Planet Earth. The Lord gave us specific events to watch for. He told us what those specific events were. He named names of countries, what was going to happen, things to look for. And I made it very easy for you to understand all of it. And all you have to do is click the book today and get that link. Today would be a really good day to receive Jesus Christ as your Savior. Honestly, we just don't know how much time we have left. We know that the birth pangs that Christ talked about in Mark 13:8 are rapidly getting stronger and stronger. And so that tells us that our time is less and less. But only God knows exactly when that is. Just be ready. That's what I'm telling you. Any other way that you can be ready is to receive Christ as your Savior. God bless.